So I am fortunate enough to be joined by the icon that is Mark Goldbridge. Mark, thank you so much for finding the time to come on the channel. Really do appreciate it.
No, love it. I love doing the collabs. It's great, and always got time for you, Rory.
Mate, you're very kind. We've seen you in managerial form of late, and what I thought we could do on this video is have a conversation. If Mark Goldbridge were given the keys to Manchester United, if you were the manager next year, what is the dream 11 through the lens of reality? Of course, is that all right?
Yeah,
It's a
perfect.
difficult job. This is going to be more difficult than managing the sidemen or the better squad, I think.
Well, I think the way Man United are being run at the moment, I'm surprised I haven't had a call because the quality of managers they're looking at are terrible. So, yeah, I know I reckon I could build a team without spending too much. That would be certainly a massive improvement on what we've seen last season.
So looking forward to next season then. We'll start in goal. You know, the big money signing that arrived last year off the back of getting to a Champions League final with a big reputation and a relationship with Erik Ten Hag was Andre Onana. In this dream scenario where you're manager next year, would you like the idea of keeping, preserving your relationship with Andre Onana, or is there someone else that you would like to bring in?
Well, I'm going to try and be realistic, Rory. I don't want to do one of
Mm,
them things where people go, he's just not, he's being foolish. So I will stick with Onana
yeah.
based on the fact that, well, not a great first season, but he was brought in to be a ball playing goalkeeper. And because of the centre back injuries, we never did that. So I would give him the second season. But just to be a little bit out there, David De Gea is still doing nothing. So I might give him a call and say, do you fancy coming and competing with an Arna for the season? Because he's a free. So why not?
Yeah, why not? Indeed. So Andre Onana is going to be our goalkeeper moving into next season. The back line, this is a major issue for Manchester United, probably been Manchester United's Achilles heel, certainly last season. And where you go, particularly with the injuries, has like left a lot of people totally flummoxed. We'll start with, should we do the centre half partnership? Have you
Yeah.
like two centre halves that you could see linking up and doing the business for Manchester United next year? How would you like to see that go?
Well, Varane's our best centre back. Obviously, he's gone. There's always been injury concerns around him, but really it's a financial decision. He's out of contract, so they can save some money. Be very interesting to see what they do with Harry Maguire and Lindelof, who are also on good money, but have still got years on their contract. So they'll still be around. I would bring in Todibo from Nice for about 34 million quid. I think he's a player that Spurs were looking at. We've been looking at for a while. Mobile, right-sided centre back, and I would stick him next to Martinez. And I think that's a very sensible and forward planning sort of centre back pairing
Yeah, obtainable
for
as
Manchester
well.
United. Yeah.
Like that is a genuine possibility, isn't it? How good do you think Lisandro Martinez is if he's fit?
I think when he's fit, and I look at the first season, he's not only transformative in his the fact that he's left-footed and he gives us balance because everyone else is right-footed, but he's also a player that can step into the midfield with the ball. His passing range is very, very good, and that you know it's so important for United because we really aren't that good at playing out from the back, and Martinez is also a leader as well. So I think he's absolutely transformative to the whole team, not just as a left-footed centre back. So yeah, huge personality player as
Yeah,
well.
I like him.
Massively. Yeah,
Got that edge, hasn't he, as well, which is so
mm.
valuable. So it's so important for a team to have that element of spite. Fullbacks over the years, you know, Manchester United history, the fullback role has been so integral to everything that Manchester United have achieved. It hasn't been great of late, but should we start with left back? Luke Shaw is the obvious answer here, but he's just so unfit. Um, how do you see this going next season?
Yeah, I mean, I've always been a big fan of Luke Shaw, even when some Man United fans haven't. But I think when he's fit, I still think he's one of the best left backs in the world. He can also play left centre back, and his energy is amazing. The elephant in the room is the injuries. We've spoken about it a lot. He had a very bad injury at a young age, and he's not going to find in the latter part of his career consistency. He's still going to be injured a lot next season. So I would stick with Luke Shaw, but they've got to delve into the market and look at a left back that is going to be available more than Malacia was. I mean, he's been out for a year. So there's talk of the Bournemouth left back or even Alt-Nouri at Wolves, which would be a good signing. But Luke Shaw would still be my priority as the number one.
Yeah, I think that's a nice team that we're building here. And over the other side at right back, how are you feeling about maybe Wan-Bissaka staying, or do you think you need to elevate your options over that side?
I think Aaron Wan-Bissaka is a very good defensive right back, which unfortunately, if you want to be in the top four, isn't really the criteria. If you look at someone like Trent defensively, I think he's been taken on more than and beaten more than anybody in the Premier League last season, and yet he's one of the
Mm.
best attacking right backs in the world. I would be going for Frimpong from Leverkusen. Again, I think his release clause is around £34 million. Fantastic attacking fullback, and I think that is what you need. Now there are people out there say you need to be defensive, but you don't. If you want to be one of the best teams, you've got to get hold of the ball and create chances. And for me, Frimpong with Delo working alongside him would be a really good balance at right back for Man United.
I love this because what you're doing here is you're building a team that is actually plausible. Like this could
Yeah.
happen. There is no reason why Manchester United, a club of the stature of Manchester United, couldn't go to Leverkusen and get hold of Frimpong. Like that could happen. This is good. Moving
Well, it's the
into
same with
midfield.
Chelsea, isn't it, Rory? I mean, at the end of the day, we can all sit there and say, let's go and sign Osman and let's go and
Yeah,
sign Wirtz and let's go and sign Kimmich. But we're both realistic and we've both got realistic fan bases that we're not winning the league next year. So you're better off doing something realistic and
yeah.
sustainable properly, which is refreshing, actually, because I think for years we have just gone and got Paul Pogba or someone like that and thought it was just going to suddenly transform us.
Yeah. I completely agree. You have to ultimately, when you get into a situation that both of our clubs have found ourselves in over recent years, you almost have to raise it to the ground, don't you? And start
Mm.
and build and put the foundations into place. And I think that we can see that that's happening. That's happening at least in the team that we're creating here. Whether it happens
Yeah.
in reality, I'm not so sure. Um, Midfield, the player that I really want your opinions on because I rate this guy so highly, but I do see him get quite a lot of stick online. Where do you sit, Bruno Fernandes?
Yeah, I mean, look, we all get it. You get it. Like you criticize somebody and apparently you're a hater. And it's so funny because we'll talk about Rashford, but on YouTube, apparently I'm the founding member of the Rashford fan club. But on Twitter, I absolutely hate him. This is perception of people. So, but with Bruno Fernandes, I was quite harsh on Bruno this season, saying that can Bruno Fernandes at 30 in September be the answer for Man United if they want to build a team to challenge with Man City? Because the way he creates chances, he's not like an Odegaard or a De Bruyne. He looks for the Hollywood pass all the time. And but there's no doubting his availability, his leadership skills, and his quality. And I think in the last few weeks of the season, we saw that. So I think Bruno is still so much to offer for Man United. There's been talk of us selling him, but he would be in my team in that number 10 position next season, definitely.
Yeah, I agree.
You've got to give it another go, certainly. He deserves that
Do you know
right, and I
what?
think he's important.
Do you know where I saw where I just thought this bloke is just different. He has the ability to play a pass that most other footballers can't even see, and that became so apparent in the FA Cup final. You know the
Yeah.
Kobie Mainoo goal. Like, look, Kobie Mainoo deserves huge amounts of credit and plaudits for that goal. Of course he does, but I almost feel like the plaudits should be split evenly between Mainoo
Mm.
finishing the move and Bruno Fernandes having that vision and that ability to just play that first time pass and effectively give his mate the dream option. You know, you're at Wembley, you've just got the keeper to beat against Man City in those surroundings. It was all because of the ingenuity of Bruno Fernandes and players like that. They're so few and far between, aren't they?
Yeah, and I look, we were doing the watch on, and I instantly said that pass was unbelievable because he had the time to hit first time, he had the time to control it, and to have the awareness and angle the pass weighted perfectly for Mainoo was fantastic. The funny thing was, I don't know whether you saw it, like a lot of people, I think it was ESPN in America, I think the commentary said he'd mishit a shot,
Oh
and
God.
like I mean, I know we get a lot of football fans from across the pond who are massively passionate about football, but I do feel sorry for you when you've got commentary of that standard
Yeah.
because you know,
Yeah, no, that was nothing other than a genius pass. That was
yeah,
nothing other than a genius pass that demonstrated his incredible vision. Yeah, if you
yeah,
aren't seeing that for that, then you are totally mistaken, aren't you? You're totally like missing the point of football. So yeah, I agree. Bruno Fernandes is a starter in this team. Who presumably two players here alongside him. What are you thinking, Mark?
yeah. So Casemiro is pretty much going to go this summer. I don't really think Amrabat's the solution. I've never seen Scott McTominay as the solution. I think Christian Eriksen, since the Andy Carroll tackle, has lost something as well. So I think the obvious player that sort of plays in between Bruno and the holding midfielder is going to be Kobie Mainoo. I wonder where Man United would have been this season without that, because this is a player that's just sort of come through from the youth setup and then become so fundamental to us and available as well with all the injuries. Um, just a fantastic talent, and big shout out to Ten Hag for, spotting that
Yeah.
and trusting him in. I think he made his first few games, he was playing away as the holding midfielder again at Goodison Park and Newcastle, which is not easy jobs to do. So he would be there. And I like him. I think he's got such great balance, and he travels with the ball so well that he can't be a 6, he's got to be an 8. And then I would be bringing a number 6 in. Now, look, there's João Neves at Benfica. I think it's going to be fantastic. Probably going to go to Man City or something. Very expensive. So I would go for something a little bit more realistic again. He's probably going to be about 35 million, plays for Atalanta. Edison, who was brilliant in the Europa League final, I think it was, but very, very well scouted by Man United and Newcastle. And I think he's sort of realistic signing that's a bit of a risk, but would be the perfect sort of holding midfielder to bring in for Manchester United.
Yeah, it's a nice midfield, and I'm not. It's obviously not surprising here, but it's worth a conversation at least. Kobie Mainoo, do you think he's now ready to be a regular first, one of the first names on the team sheet, start for Manchester United week in, week out? He is that player already.
Well, yeah, I do. I think his trajectory is remarkable, and the old head on the young shoulders. Because as we've seen in the past, as a young player, you want to come into a team that can nurture you, and he's had to come into a team a bit like Garnacho, where he's had to shoulder a lot of responsibility. My only issue with him is burnout. He's just playing so much football, and may well be playing in the Euros, which I'd rather he didn't. I think England have got more than enough players in there, and will he actually start for England anyway? But that's just the level of exposure he's getting at the moment. But yeah, 100% starts for Man United next season.
And England, he just has to start for England as well. He's the only player that offers that protection, I think.
I
So
don't think he will, but yeah, I mean, I think he'll
I'd
go
like
with.
to see it. I would like to see it. And then what about what is got? I don't know where to start here. In the previous parts of the team, I've picked a player and gone, well, I know that you're going to pick him, presumably at least. So there's nothing controversial. I can go Bruno Fernandes in midfield, who alongside him, Mark, up front, three players up front. I honestly don't really know where to go here, so I'm going to just have to hand the reins over to you to kick this off. Where would you like to go first?
So I'm going to sign a player straight away, which is a player that may well end up at Chelsea. We'll have to wait and see. But I would sign Michael Elise, or Michael Elise. I don't get the pronunciation right. I'd sign him on the right hand side. Manchester United has always been a side, even before I was born, that has been about wing play and creativity, and we've lost our way with that massively. We don't create enough chances for our striker, and we haven't done for years. What I like about Elise is that he's got this amazing ability to score a goal, but also create a goal. And that's not a rarity, but it's a distinct, look at someone like Anthony Gordon. He's the same. He wants to create for a striker. Whereas some of the players we've got, like Rashford, Anthony, they want to cut it and shoot. So he comes in on the right-hand side to give us some creativity. And then Garnacho starts on the left, because his growth at Man United over the last 2 years, and still only 19, has been fantastic. And there's just no way he should be coming out of the team to be benched by anybody. So I think he prefers to play off the left. I'd put him on the left, and I'd be building with him on that side for the next few years, because I think his ceiling is higher than any winger that we've got. So that I'd bring one in on the right, and I'd move Garnacho over to the left. And I think that obviously puts a very big player, our best paid player, not in this team, because I'm going to put Rasmus Højlund up front, who I think has had a very challenging first season. People forget that we spent a lot of money on him, but his year before that was at Atalanta, which was his breakthrough season. So he's been through so much this year, and I think he's shown glimpses of what he can be. And I think in year 2 he'll be even better for that. And yeah, so there's no place for Marcus Rashford in this starting 11 for me.
Which I obviously have to now inquire about. Do you not think that... Would you keep him at the club? Does he do a job for Manchester United where necessary, or do you think he's too big a player to ultimately sit on the bench?
Well, I think he will stay at the club. I'm not hearing anything that he's going to go anywhere. But if you buy someone like Elise on the right and you put Garnacho on the left, then he can't start. And he can't be on the bench for Manchester United because he's too expensive and he's too big a player. I've always said that realistically, whatever's going on around him, there are issues, and there is definitely issues in the fan base. There are people who just don't want him at the club anymore. There's still a lot of support there, and you can turn that around. To me, the whole Manchester born and bred, and he's been there since he was a kid, is a bit of a problem, because that might be the reason he's now staying. Because I think a lot of players would look at it and go, it's so right for me to go and, you know, try and get out of this situation and prosper somewhere else. I mean, I think PSG would be a great move, but I don't think PSG are going to be in for him. So it's
Okay.
interesting. He probably will start for United next season, but my honest answer is I wouldn't put him ahead of Garnacho.
No, and I can certainly see the logic for doing that. I think it certainly makes sense. And that front three that you've created there, I mean, Michael Elise, in my opinion, is one of the most electrifying players in the league. He's actually one of my favorite players to watch. You know, if you know, when you watch football through the lens of being bipartisan, like not tribal, just who do you enjoy watching? I find both Eberechi Eze and Michael Elise
Mm,
incredibly enjoyable to watch. I think they're beautiful footballers. And you've got to rate him. You know, he turned Chelsea down last year. He does
yeah.
feel like a Manchester United player for the way that you and I would judge Manchester United. You know, a Fergie would have signed Elise, definitely,
Mm.
but you're just not the same. You're not the same proposition anymore, are you? But the
No.
team that you created, I like.
Yeah, and it's not massively expensive, really. I mean, it's four. I think there's four new players: Frimpong, Todibo, Edison, Elise.
Yeah, yeah,
And it's
obtainable as
not, it's
well.
not, it's
All
not,
obtainable.
not impossible. I mean, obviously, probably got to cash in on a few players. I mean, if you cashed in on Rashford, you'd cover that easy. But Greenwood, Sancho, etc.
Dream scenario, what obviously last season you didn't make it into the Champions League spots, but did win a trophy. If things go as well as they can go next season, what do you think the ceiling is? Top four and silverware?
Yeah, I think fourth place is massively up for grabs. I mean, it will be very interesting what's happened. We might know, but even by now, what's happened with the manager situation. If you change the manager, you put yourself with Chelsea, really, that you're starting
Mm,
again. If you keep Ten Hag, I think there's a bit of an advantage that you've got a bit of momentum. And I think fourth place is up for grabs. I think it'll be difficult for Villa to replicate. Spurs are Spurs. Who knows with Newcastle? And then you've got Chelsea and Man United, who, will be looking at. I mean, Liverpool with Arnie Slot. I still think they're a good team, but there could
it's
be some
interesting, isn't
vulnerability
it?
there.
Yeah. Yeah. I do agree. And Mark, just before you go, do you think, or from whatever you've heard, when the season kicks off, is Erik Ten Hag still the manager, do you think?
I genuinely don't know. I really don't think
Mm,
anybody does know at the moment. If you'd asked me 3 days ago, I'd have said he was staying. The latest is that we're still talking to other managers. I honestly can't think, if you can think of anything, Roy, I can't think of a football club that's ever behaved like this.
no, I
I've
know.
heard of people sacking managers after FA Cup finals. We did it with Van Gaal, but to wait 2 weeks,
Yeah.
and it's just not how a football club behaves. I think
No.
it's disrespectful and
It's so
and
disrespectful.
amateurish.
I completely agree. It's so disrespectful. It's so undermining for Ten Hag, and you have to admire the way that he's conducted himself to win the FA Cup in those circumstances, in the midst, as the dust was still settling off the back of that Jacob Steinberg article
Mm.
in the Guardian, that briefing. No, it was amazing. But Mark, I've thoroughly enjoyed this, and I like the team that you've built. Thank you so much for finding the time to join me on this channel. I really do appreciate it. This feels like a slightly ridiculous thing to say, but I've put your link in the description below. If anybody has not yet subscribed to the Mark Goldbridge channel, make sure that you do so. Mark, as always, an honor. Really do appreciate you finding the time, mate. And I look forward to speaking to you soon.
Thank you very much. Cheers. Thanks for having me on.